I've never in my life been around white people who tried to make me feel inferior to them. That is, not until I entered veterinary medicine.
I've had white coworkers use the N-word around me.
When I reported several comments about
a vet spoke down to my mother for her.
A woman who I worked with was referred to as the woman in the scarf repeatedly.
I was one of 3 black women.
They refused to update it.
I laughed it off at the time.
I didn't think millennials could be racist. I was so wrong.
I was told I would get into vet school because I was black. That was it. This comment erased all the hard work I had done throughout undergrad.
A white coworker asked me how I got over the wall to come to work. I'm Mexican.
In a large VBMA meeting, a prominent speaker said, "Vet school is like slavery. We have the scars on our backs too." The room was full of predominantly white vet students. They all laughed.
When I reported several comments about my race to HR, my employer reprimanded me and threatened to terminate me for making false claims. I was the only person of color in my workplace.
I'm saddened by the relative lack of ethnic diversity in the teaching faculty in my DVM program, and especially within the college leadership echelon.
I have never had a black professor.
My workplace brags about having so many employees of color, but fails to note that the vast majority of those employees are working at the lowest pay level.
As a white woman, I've noticed my black associates have to work 10 times harder to be taken seriously by management.
A white professor showed a picture of himself dressed as a Mexican and in blackface to our entire class during a lecture. It was reported to administration. They did nothing.
A classmate told my friend that she would make a good inner city vet. My friend is a person of color.
A coworker once told me that it was her experience that people who weren't white didn't know how to take care of animals correctly. After complaining to a supervisor, I was told that she was disappointed that I would take an innocent conversation and blow it out of proportion. Besides, I was told, she didn't say black people, just anyone not white.
I was one of 3 black women in my graduating class. Throughout our vet school career, most of our classmates used our 3 names interchangeably. They couldn't bother to figure out who was who.
We had 2 girls of the same name in our class. One was black and one was white. One of our professors consistently referred to them as Tracy and Black Tracy.
I have a, quote, ethnic sounding name. I am white. When applying for a summer equine job, my professor told me to include a picture with my applications. I wouldn't get hired, he said, if they, quote, see your name and think you are black.
A mandatory instructional video at the company I work for refers to Mexicans as being instinctively good at animal raising, and that is why they fill so many animal agriculture jobs. They refuse to update it.
My college advisor continually told me and other students of color we should switch our career goals when faced with academic struggles, while our white counterparts were encouraged and offered resources to assist with academics.
A vet spoke down to my mother for her broken English and assumed she was just not going to pay for care just because she is Latina.
A professor poked fun at my Asian heritage throughout my rotation. I laughed it off at the time because there was nothing I could do. I felt disrespected.
Recently, while a coworker was restraining a difficult animal, they said, "Don't make me George Floyd you."
An anatomy professor at my school assumed that my African American classmate, the only one in our class of 135, was a janitor. When he said he was a student, the professor asked, "At what school?" as he stood in the anatomy lab.
My Sikh practice owner had to stop wearing his turban because people called him a sandler and other horrible racist names.
I have a very common Latinx last name. When I was an intern at a university, a resident in charge of assessing my performance felt the need to call me by a different generic Latinx last name every time he encountered me. Everyone kept saying, "It's just a joke, he doesn't mean anything by it."
The people who did it were fired, but I was made to feel guilty about getting these popular people fired. Upper management wasn't able to address the culture that made these events possible. I left.
The institution I work for has known problems with racism against students and faculty, which I've been subjected to multiple times. They've done little to change the climate. The average faculty member of color stays just 3 years on average. I've worked for 4 veterinary colleges over the years. We need less talk and more action.
As veterinarians, we are no strangers to hard discussions. There's no reason we can't have this discussion too.